our murder statutes tough enough? And what about gambling in Hawaii? Should it be legalized? Two of the people that are the top experts in these fields in Hawaii, Mark Bennett and Peter Carlisle, are here today to talk about their viewpoint and their challenges in the law enforcement community and at the legislature. Welcome to the show.
Thanks, Malia. It's nice to be here. Aloha.
Thanks.
Thanks for having us, Malia. I'm not sure about the two top experts in the field part.
There might be some people that dispute that.
I'm sure there are a lot of people, and I thought we were here to talk about the Carlisle for Mayor campaign.
A wonderful subject.
Okay, that'll be another day. We'll have you on
you.
for that. Mark and Peter, you just recently had a press conference about some of the bills that you want to get through the legislature, and maybe you can talk about that. I know we've done this every year. We talk about this package. One year you didn't come, so it was just me and Mark.
It must have been comfortable.
Yeah, I told them it was on a different day.
Yeah. But Mark, tell us about, maybe you can open up with some of the things that you're trying to get through the legislature this year.
Absolutely, and we all agree that especially in these tough financial times, these are bills that either will have no cost or actually save the taxpayers money. Sadly, up to now in the legislative session, none of these bills have gotten anywhere, which we think is really unfortunate because we think the legislature truly needs to be more focused on fighting crime and helping the victims of crime. But the first bill that I'm going to talk about is one that addresses a very serious problem in society today, which is domestic violence. I mean, sadly, you can pick up the newspaper almost every week, certainly every month, and read about some horribly violent incident, usually involving a woman who's seriously assaulted or worse, murdered by someone she's in a relationship with, was in a relationship with, and all too often had gotten a restraining order. And restraining orders are good pieces of paper, and sometimes they help, but they don't. Holding up a restraining order doesn't stop somebody from coming after you and killing you. And what we, with our domestic violence bill, are trying to do is to give the police a different tool, a better tool to intervene earlier in these disputes to try to help save lives. Right now, if a woman, and it applies to men too, but if someone gets a restraining order and somebody violates it, they're guilty of contempt of court, which is a minor offense. If they assault the person who got the restraining order, they're usually guilty of a misdemeanor, and the police come in and saying, we're going to arrest you for contempt of court, or we're going to arrest you for misdemeanor assault, usually isn't enough to make the guy stop and think, maybe this doesn't make any sense. What our bill says is, if you violate a restraining order and threaten somebody, if you violate a restraining order and assault someone, if that would be a misdemeanor, except for the restraining order, if you're subject to the restraining order, now it's a felony. You can be arrested for a felony, you can go to jail for up to 5 years. The purpose of the bill isn't simply to send more people to jail. It's to allow police to be able to say, buddy, I've told you to stay away, or there's a restraining order ordering you to stay away. If you assault or threaten this woman, you're going to get arrested for a felony. And if they do come and assault or threaten them, they will get arrested for a felony. They actually will spend some time in jail, and maybe that'll be enough of a cooling off period that they won't end up seriously assaulting the woman, killing the woman. Maybe it'll save a few lives. We hope that it will, maybe even more than a few lives. But as Peter and I have both said about this bill, this very important bill, if this bill saves one woman from being seriously assaulted or murdered, it is more than worth it, and law enforcement is unanimous. The prosecutors and the police all believe that this bill, which after all only comes into effect if somebody commits a crime after they've already been the subject of a restraining order, will help protect women and will help fight domestic violence. It almost passed a few years ago. We can't understand why it's not getting hearings this year, and I have meetings set to discuss it. To me, this is my number one priority in the legislature, fighting domestic violence this year, and I hope this bill gets hearings.
Well, we often see legislators doing a silent march with candles, and they all come out and they hold their candle. So is this their chance to actually put some muscle behind their candle? I mean, I see the candle thing as, well, what good is that going to do? Some people actually, I mean, this is a place where they can actually have some action.
To walk the walk and talk the talk.
That's right.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah. Can you give me, one of you give me an example of a case that kind of might have been different, might have ended differently if this bill had been around?
There were a couple that we were looking at one point, and the ones that come to mind are the ones where nothing came out well at the ultimate conclusion of it, but would have given you at least something that you could have enhanced a sentence on.
Right.
So
I mean, it's hard to tell what would have changed.
yeah,
you
can't tell what the dynamics would have been,
Right.
but it's very clear that there are people who have survived attacks, and this would give you the opportunity to really sort of put the hammer down on the person who committed it. So it happens a number of times. Sometimes it's the hostage-taking situations where they ultimately end up not pursuing or they giving up the before and surrendering before somebody's hurt. But that would give you the chance to enhance a sentence. So all of that stuff is good. The one that we bring up as an example of a restraining order case is the one where the guy bashed the girl to death in Kaneohe.
With the shotgun?
With the shotgun. And there was a restraining order in that case. And perhaps if that had been, if he had known immediately that that was something that he could have used and used earlier against him, that might have saved the woman's life.
Yeah, I think that the fact that somebody faces a felony, if they are ready to go kill somebody, the fact that they're facing a felony isn't necessarily and probably isn't going to stop them. But I believe that in a lot of these cases, the guy doesn't go confront the woman with the intent before he goes to kill her. I think that there's a lot of anger. There's obviously an intent to be violent, and sometimes these things escalate. And in some of these cases, despite the violence that's inherent in these situations, the person, if he knows, if I do anything, it's going to be a felony, and I'm on probation, I'm on parole, I'm willing to risk the misdemeanor, but since I know it's automatically going to be a felony, maybe he'll stay away. Maybe the police will be able to keep him away. And in addition to the case that Peter mentions, I think we all remember a case a couple of years ago on the Big Island with somebody chasing a woman when there was a restraining order. We just see these all the time. This isn't a panacea. This isn't going to stop everybody who commits domestic violence. But if it stops a couple, or if it puts somebody in jail for long enough so that they're not going to go seriously assault or kill somebody who's gotten a restraining order, it's more than worth it. There's no economic cost. And I think your point is a really good one, Malia. Raising awareness is important. Silent marches are important. Candles are important. But what it's really about is saving women's lives. And we think this bill will do that.
Good. Okay. We'll hope lawmakers hear you. Peter, what is another bill that you're trying to get through out of the five?
One of the things that you would think would be an automatic this year, because everybody's concerned about the issue of the economy and expenses, and we still are having police officers and civilian witnesses dragged down to court simply because new laws have been passed to replace old laws. So we did something years ago called information charging. It took 6 years to get through, and what it does is it allows a judge to review a stack of papers. You just look at papers, and what they do is they decide whether or not there's probable cause to have a trial. When you do that, the victim doesn't have to come in. When you do that, the police officers don't have to come in. When you do that, some of the times the medical examiners and doctors don't have to come in. So all of that is good and healthy for the right types of cases. But what they gave us was a shopping list. And sometimes they invent new offenses. And when the new offenses are invented, they don't get on the list. So all we're asking this year is to put a number of offenses on the list. One of them is unlawful possession of confidential personal information, which always goes hand in hand with a forgery case. Because of that, we now have to bring in civilians to sit there and say, oh, I didn't give anybody permission to steal my checkbook and forge my name. We have to have police officers come down and testify. And that happens with some regularity, and it's always piggyback with other cases that you usually used to be able to do this other information charging system with. Same thing's true for unlawful entry into a dwelling. And then there's a meth trafficking that's of a new degree. All of those things are dragging people down to the courthouse. It's costing the courts money. It's costing those people time off from their work. It's re-traumatizing victims. It's keeping police officers from doing what we want them to do and getting them overtime and sitting on a bench in a courthouse when they could be doing their work. So there is no downside to doing this immediately, and so far it's going absolutely nowhere.